Hello and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome. This is season 7, which is insane. I took a little bit of a break, a longer break than normal, but I just needed to decompress. I have so many wonderful women coming on this season. You guys are going to love every single one of them, I promise. And then I also have some solo episodes lined up where I'm going to give you guys some good advice, hopefully, about some productivity tips so you can get things done. And I'm hoping to bring in some of my favorite people to kind of chat with me about all the things. All right? But for this episode, I can't tell you how many times I created an outline, especially in my brain, of what I wanted to cover. I mean, 2020 has had so many twists and turns, I just don't even know where to begin. Between COVID-19, the social injustice movement, and other unexpected events, it has definitely been a roller coaster of emotions. I'm just thankful that my family, friends, and myself, that we have all luckily weathered the storm that still hasn't quite subsided. But so far, everyone has been okay, thankfully. With that said, I decided to start this season out with the theme resilience. Now, maybe I've been listening to too many how I built this podcast episodes lately on resilience, but I feel like the word embodies how we're all surviving. I mean, by definition, resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. I think it's important that you realize you can get through anything, from unexpected things that just pop up to some of the most challenging, life-changing decisions you will face. Cue my life the past couple of years. Before I share my story, I want to throw out a few caveats or disclaimers. By no means am I saying that what I've gone through is any more or less difficult than what you've gone through, because I realize and know people who have and are currently working through some real hardships and are in literal pain. I also want to put out there that though I am focusing on the most challenging times that I've gone through the last couple of years, that I love my life and I consider myself incredibly lucky. Like, sometimes I think I was born under a super shiny star, because even with all the crazy that's happened in my life, the good significantly outweighs it. So please, as I tell you this story, don't go, oh man, or sorry to hear that, because I wouldn't be sharing this if I wasn't in a good place. I'm a firm believer that people should never, especially on social platforms, share what they're going through or have gone through until they've healed. Too many outside voices usually cloud people's judgments and usually make things even worse. So please don't share a wound while it's fresh. Make sure you're healed. So I've gone through 3 huge pivots, 2 that are somewhat interconnected. The first is I am now divorced after being married for 11 years. Secondly, I sold and moved out of a 4-bedroom suburban home into a quaint, charming 2-bedroom apartment in the heart of DC. And the third, I underwent a partial hysterectomy to stop a decade of pain caused by fibroids, all while working a demanding 9-to-5 job and delivering content for my side hustle. It's been interesting, and yes, maybe I'm just a little crazy pants, just a smidgen. The fact of the matter is, I'm a very practical, pragmatic person that makes decisions based on facts and my intuition. Before I make any moves, you best believe I scrutinize over every scenario over and over again. Even when I have to make quick decisions, I can calculate multiple scenarios repeatedly so I can make the best calculated decision with the information I have. As an extrovert, it's also important for me to have key conversations with people that I know will help me through those tough decisions when it makes sense. Because I do believe there are times when you yourself need to jump off that cliff alone and be comfortable with making those hard decisions without the input of others. It's definitely a balance. The divorce involves someone else I love and care about, so of course I'm not going to go into a lot of details. But I will tell you that after a really hard, heart-pounding conversation, the man I had been married to at the time for 9 years, and I decided that we had not only grown apart, but we wanted very different things out of life. What made the decision more difficult is we got along pretty good. We are actually still now really good friends. I'm not saying, when we were married that we didn't argue, but we worked pretty good as a team. So even though we knew we were making the right decision, at the time we decided not to rush it. And we were both open to revisiting things, if it made sense. It's funny, the whole situation actually strengthened our relationship as friends because since we knew we were getting a divorce, we didn't argue about some of the small dumb stuff anymore. It was weird. I can't explain it. It was like, you do you and I'll do me. During this time, I made the decision to also get a partial hysterectomy. Fibroids were dominating my life. And for those of you guys who don't know what fibroids are, they are benign. They're a benign tumor of muscular and fibrous tissue, typically developing in the wall of the uterus. I define them as evil little spirits that are constantly attacking you. Years ago, I had a myomectomy, but those pesky little boogers over time just slowly came back. As they grew, they caused extreme pain and ridiculously heavy cycles. What really sucked is I would start feeling the symptoms a week before my cycle would start. So 2 out of every 4 weeks, I was in pain. You get used to it and learn which pads and clothes to wear during different times of the month, but it was miserable and exhausting. I mean, I literally decided my vacations around my cycles. It was that insane. I just couldn't take it anymore. It was time for me to take my life back. So June of 2019, I decided to get a partial hysterectomy laparoscopically. The decision for me may not have been as difficult as it is for others because I'm in my early 40s and I always knew I didn't want to have children. So what scared me the most was getting put under and not waking up. My mom and niece flew out to take care of me and help keep me company, but my ex was a gem too. but I knew he was relieved that they were there to help. I was and always will be appreciative of my family. Love them. I did go back to work maybe 1 week too early because there were some days that I came home in extreme pain. So learn from my hard lesson. Make sure you take care of yourself and do not go to work before you're ready, if you have a choice. After that event was over, I also realized what was causing much pain and anguish in my life was an 1.5 to 2 hour commute each way to work. It was insane. Though I loved my house, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to move. I had to. But that forced us to revisit our conversation from 2 years earlier. Was this now the time? Should we move together or go our separate ways? After much consideration, we decided to move separately and get a divorce. Know that our decision didn't come lightly. We also didn't have the complications of other relationships. We have no kids. The house was the only joint property. And though we had joint accounts, we also had our separate accounts. So there wasn't anything to necessarily bicker about. The question really was, do we belong together or not? Well, we put the house on the market and all of a sudden everything became real. That was like a whole ordeal. There was some ups and downs with that. But once we had a real closing date, we had to make some moves. My ex ordered a dumpster and we began the purge process. It was maybe the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. We had a 4,000 square foot house. I had an office and a craft room. We also had a movie room, 2 living rooms, a deck, a huge backyard. The reality of leaving a home you've spent the last decade to build, coupled with deciding what you can actually take with you because you're moving into an 1,100 square foot apartment, is super stressful. Super stressful. As we sold, donated, and trashed all of this stuff, there was a point that I literally felt nauseous. And I may have gone dumpster diving once. And I'm not even a pack rat, but it was funny. He threw something away and I'm like, no, why'd you throw that away? We can't throw that away. Okay, I might have went a little crazy. It was letting go of some items that seemed just so precious, right? But I tell you what, after that, I vowed to never, ever have that much stuff again. Ever. I vowed to be more thoughtful about every purchase. Also, I realized that even though I love that house, I didn't need anything that was that big. It was nice to have experienced it, but it was just an excuse to collect more stuff. And who needs to clean that much house? I mean, I don't even want to pay someone to clean that much house. I mean, and we also realized we only really utilized 50% of the house because really, you have your favorite rooms and then you just use those rooms over and over again and all the other rooms get neglected. So anywho, we managed in the nick of time to get it all done just as freaking COVID reared its ugly little head. Heck, my first week in the apartment, I couldn't even find toilet paper. It was crazy. Once COVID hit, I took the time to settle into my new place, And as I lay in bed alone for the first time ever while listening to the whistle of a metro train, it kind of all just like sunk in. I didn't have any regrets because I knew we were doing the right thing, but it was still weird. Though I did work during the first parts of COVID, where a lot of people are off, the days I did have off, I used them to continue old habits like journaling. But I also incorporated new habits like walking every day I was off. And I started cooking. I freaking made blueberry pancakes from scratch. If you know me, that was like, whoa. I also just took the time to relax. Besides creating the website dreamsplansideas.com, I really did take the time to just decompress. Once everything opened back up, we finally got a date for our uncontested divorce hearing. As we answered the judge on our Zoom call, which was really weird. He had like this, yeah, it was just weird. It was like, whoa, this is it. I am officially a divorcee. I never thought I'd ever get married, let alone divorced. But I didn't feel like our marriage was a failure. I felt like we were what we needed when we needed it. I would 100% do it all over again. I hope that he will forever be my best friend. Though we are no longer a couple, we do care deeply for each other and will do anything for each other. And I will always hold that dear. So yeah, that happened. And life still went on. I still gave 100% when needed, but I also, for the most part, took breaks when needed. So I tell this story to let you know we are all going through something. We all make hard decisions that scare the crap out of us, but we have to remain resilient. If you take anything from this little story, know that 1, starting over is scary, but sometimes it's what you need in order to live the life you love. Don't let hard decisions paralyze you, and learn to force yourself to have those difficult conversations. 2, take care of yourself. We only have this one life. Do exercises that work for you, get regular checkups, and make sure you do what needs to be done when it comes to taking care of yourself. That can mean surgery or just going to the doctor when you don't feel good. 3, create habits to help you maintain your well-being. On days I didn't work, I always woke up, put on my workout clothes, and I would go for a walk. That was the habit every time. I never did that at my old house. It's interesting how changing your environment can help you create and maintain a new habit. With journaling, I always have it in sight on my table as a visual cue to remind me to journal. That didn't change. But a great book to read on creating good habits is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I couldn't find the origin of this quote, but I thought it was a perfect way to end this story. Sometimes our lives have to be completely shaken up, changed, and rearranged to relocate us to the place we're meant to be, unquote. So I will leave you with that, my friends. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this episode or just enjoyed the Studio 78 podcast, As always, I ask, please leave me a review, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Thank you to everybody who already has done that. I really appreciate the stars and your words. It really, really makes me feel so good to know that you guys enjoy these episodes. If you're listening on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. Regardless of where you're listening to, please subscribe. And if you want to support the podcast and get some amazing goodies, head on over to nachesnow.com/shop. That'll take you over to my new fancy shop website, and you can get t-shirts and also all my journals. I've really enjoyed this past summer creating digital journals, so check that out. And the Life Cleanse journal, which has been out for a while, is now available digitally. And if journaling and t-shirts aren't your thing and you just want to buy me a cup of coffee, at least as the airing of this episode, if you head on over to nachesnow.com and go to the bottom right corner, you can click and buy me a cup of coffee to say thanks. Anyway, thanks again, and I look forward to being in your ears next week. Have a good one. Take care.